The Nazi eastward expedition was the ultimate masterclass in what happened when two men with God complexes and absolute power decided to clash. Millions died, highlighting one of the most horrific warfare ever. So here is the video where I get judged the most based on my historical hot takes. I will list 8 defining and catastrophic milestones in the confrontation between Stalin and Hitler. Hit subscribe if you hate fascism, and let's just get into it. Let's start at number 1. In 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power with the goal of building a 1,000-year Reich. Although both he and Stalin were absolute dictators, their ideologies and work ethics were polar opposites. Hitler's regime was driven by racism and the unscientific concept of Aryan supremacy, while Stalin focused on socialist ideals. Their daily management styles also differed significantly. Hitler was surprisingly lazy. He woke up late, hated administrative work, and preferred gossiping with generals over reading reports. In contrast, Stalin was a meticulous workaholic who micromanaged everything with intense discipline. Even on vacation, he demanded total control over every decision. Ultimately, it was a clash between a humorless, disciplined micromanager and a disorganized fascist driven by pure hatred. Second event. Starting in 1933, Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany with the goal of creating a 1,000-year Reich. Although both Hitler and Stalin were absolute dictators, their ideologies and daily management styles were polar opposites. Hitler's regime was driven by racism and the horrific concept of Aryan supremacy, while Stalin focused on pursuing socialist ideals. Their work ethics were particularly different. Hitler was surprisingly lazy. He woke up late, avoided administrative paperwork, and preferred gossiping with generals over reading reports. In contrast, Stalin was a meticulous workaholic who micromanaged everything with terrifying intensity. Even while on vacation, he controlled the Soviet Union through constant correspondence, demanding total authority over every decision. The third one was in 1936. Stalin launched the Great Purge, a period of extreme political repression fueled by his own paranoia. By targeting intellectuals, political rivals, and the military elite, he essentially sabotaged his own nation's defense just years before World War II. The most devastating impact was on the military. Stalin purged approximately 90% of his senior officers, executing or imprisoning over 500 of his 767 highest-ranking commanders. This hysterical campaign created internal chaos and left the Red Army severely weakened. In what was a massive strategic blunder, Stalin dismantled his own leadership infrastructure, effectively clearing the path for Nazi Germany to benefit from a vulnerable Soviet Union. In number 4, during 1938, the Munich Agreement highlighted the failure of Western appeasement. Britain and France ceded Czechoslovakian territory to Hitler, excluding the USSR from negotiations entirely. This wasn't just a mistake, it was a calculated move. The British viewed communism as a greater threat than fascism and hoped Germany and the Soviet Union would eventually destroy each other. Stalin correctly interpreted this as an attempt by the West to direct Hitler's aggression toward Moscow. This betrayal proved that moderate powers were willing to sacrifice smaller nations to protect their own interests. Consequently, the delusion of Western diplomacy forced Stalin to completely rethink his strategic alliances, realizing he could no longer trust the West to contain Nazi expansion. We're getting to number 5. In August 1939, the world was stunned by the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact, a non-aggression agreement between Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union. More than just a peace treaty, it included a secret protocol to divide Eastern Europe, specifically Poland and the Baltic states, into spheres of influence. This cursed crossover between ideological enemies illustrated that imperial goals often outweigh political purity. Hitler wanted to focus on attacking Britain, while Stalin sought a buffer zone to protect against the capitalist West. It was a calculated, hypocritical move, where both dictators prioritized territorial expansion over their supposed values. On June 22, 1941, event number 6, Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, a massive invasion of the Soviet Union. Surprisingly, Stalin was the only one caught off guard. Despite receiving numerous intelligence reports warning of the attack, he dismissed them as British misinformation intended to provoke a war. Stalin's refusal to face reality left the Red Army completely unprepared, leading to catastrophic losses of territory and millions of soldiers. Overwhelmed by the scale of the disaster, Stalin suffered a mental breakdown and temporarily withdrew from public life, fearing his leadership would be challenged after such a monumental failure. Now, I'll show you what happened in number 7. Stalin eventually emerged from his crisis to reassert control as Supreme Commander-in-Chief. This led to the Battle of Stalingrad, 1942 to 1943, a brutal turning point fueled by the massive egos of both dictators. Stalin refused to let his namesake city fall, while Hitler was equally obsessed with capturing it. To ensure victory, Stalin issued the infamous Order number 227, with the famous saying, "Not a step back," which used penal battalions to punish unauthorized retreats. The Soviet Union also employed scorched earth tactics to destroy German logistics, a strategy famously used by Vietnam to bog down invading empires. Finally, the Red Army launched Operation Uranus, successfully encircling the German Sixth Army. While this victory solidified Stalin's reputation as the architect of victory, it came at a staggering, tragic human cost. And finally, 1945, the fall of Berlin. The Red Army captured Berlin following massive offensives like Operation Bagration. Faced with the total collapse of his thousand-year Reich, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker on April 30th rather than facing justice. It was the ultimate fascist rage quit, choosing to pull the plug once he realized he would be held accountable by the people he deemed inferior. With Germany's unconditional surrender, the war in Europe ended, and Stalin emerged victorious. However, his focus immediately shifted to the next era, racing to build a Soviet atomic bomb to match the West. While fascism was neutralized, the world quickly transitioned into a new imperial standoff defined by weapons of mass destruction. So there you have it. 8 milestones in the clash between two of the biggest egos in human history. It's a dark, heavy reminder that when authoritarianism and imperialism run unchecked, it's the everyday people who become the collateral damage. We can look back and mock the absurdity of their decisions, but we also have to stay hyper-vigilant. The aesthetics of fascism might change, but the playbook stays exactly the same.